Hey guys, I wanted to come together again and have a discussion about a topic that I think is really relevant right now and we are at a greater risk for, which is depression and mental health challenges as it relates to COVID-19. And currently I'm reading a book which is called Lost Connections by Johann Hari. Excellent piece of literature about the possible causes of depression. And I think that it'd be important to explore this. I pulled several components of that book to talk about that I believe are relevant to this current time. So as we move along this conversation, please, I'd like you guys to engage in the conversation as well and give me your feedback and questions during this process. But up front, first of all, I want to say I know we are at increased risk for mental health challenges right now. And there are plenty of reasons for anxiety with all the uncertainty, the increase in unemployment rates, as well as feeling disconnected from the people in our lives, causing us an increase in anxiety or sadness and depression. If you are struggling with your mental health, please reach out for support to myself or another trusted health professional. Personally, things have really been going well as far as expanding the way I operate and provide services to where we found that telehealth has been very effective, in fact, preferred for some people. And then additionally, I've offered walk and talk sessions at the park or in some community settings, and that actually has worked really well for some of my clients. Have had clients who have had major breakthroughs because of the change in setting of where they're discussing their mental health challenges. And so that's been amazing as well to see that, bringing people into nature or a less intimidating setting to where they can interact maybe through FaceTime or a video chat format. If you are needing mental health services, we can do telehealth. There are multiple options. We do have a secure HIPAA compliant format through Doxy. Some have preferred just to use FaceTime, which is not as secure, but if that's fine with you, or if people would prefer to meet at the park or in the community, that is, like I said, worked really well for some. Is also allowing people to stay active, get exposure to sunlight, and be more grounded with nature and practice mindfulness. It's really opened the door for us to do a lot more with people's mental health than we could do in a clinical setting. So reach out to me there. I'm excited about those breakthroughs. I want to let you guys know about some new content that we've got out on social media. So as always, be sure to follow along on my Foresight Wellness page on Facebook. Just dropped a new article this morning talking about the importance of celebrating the small successes and discipline breakthroughs in our lives and writing those breakthroughs to increase confidence, and not necessarily rewarding ourselves, but definitely celebrating those. So go check that out on my Foresight Wellness Facebook page. Additionally, I just completed a write-up about this topic that we're going to discuss now about lost connections and depression. I posted on Instagram, so at Derek Forsyth on Instagram, you can check that out as well. We'll be throwing up some new YouTube content as well. I'm planning on, I think, I'll do some more batch filming this weekend. Several topics that I'm wanting to explore with you guys. Right now, like I said, I'm reading Lost Connections. I'm going to finish that book, and I want to have an in-depth discussion about the content of that book and the triggers for depression. Also, something else I've been exploring with my clients in particular are the driving factors for why people feel so compelled to play video games. Something that I've been intrigued by. I've not ever been into gaming, something actually I've had sort of a negative outlook on, and I'm trying to better understand that. So I want to come together and have a conversation about the role of video games in mental health as well, and why they're so addictive. And then we're going to talk more about exercise and mental health in the future as well, as something I've been exploring. Lots of things on the horizon. Let's really dive more in this tonight. Other books that I'm reading besides Lost Connections, okay? Currently reading, this is my evening read. So what I kind of do is I've got audiobooks that I have going. I have like my morning read and then my bedtime read. So this one right here, it's called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. It's by Harold, this is not working out for me, Harold Kushner. And actually it's a really fascinating book, better than I anticipated. it has a lot of biblical view as well. Currently, I'm reading in it a chapter about the book of Job and Job's sufferings, but really explores, the role of suffering and sacrifice in our lives. And I think pretty timely for this current situation. I've had the book for a while and just finally decided to really dive in. And relevant to the discussion we're about to have, this shows up in the mail today, the latest edition of Psychology Today, which is talking about just that, the importance of face-to-face interactions and those lost connections that we have experienced over the past 6 to 8 weeks with the isolation from COVID-19. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about that. From lost connections, he explores 9 triggers or causes for depression, and 7 of those being psychosocial. So a couple of them, we're looking at more biological or genetic or being related to trauma, but 7 of these more so environmental and different areas in our lives that are a little bit more easily influenced. And, in looking at the current situation, I think that we can point to, 3 of those in particular that I think are relevant to right now. And that is a lost connection related to, first of all, lost connection to people and meaningful relationships, right? So right now, and we'll explore these in detail, but right now we don't have the same level of face-to-face interaction that we were previously used to. So obviously, as a product of that, we have lost those meaningful connections. We're probably not building our relationships to a deeper level, and ones that we're moving in that direction perhaps have been put on hold, whereas maybe they're even falling back. So number 1, a loss in meaningful relationships and connection to people. And then number 2 is the lost connection of a purposeful career or jobs or work. And I think of this too, especially if you have a career that is very meaningful and you derive a lot of your purpose and value from it, that right now you're really possibly struggling if you've been removed from that or it's been reduced. So number 2, lost connection to meaningful career. And then the third lost connection is to that of a hopeful and clear outlook for a promising future. And so right now with so much uncertainty, a lot of our goals are in limbo financially. There's so many questions that it's hard to have a lot of confidence about the future. And I think that that's presenting challenges for people too. So three things right there: lost connections to meaningful relationships and other people, to purpose-driven careers, and to hope towards a promising future. So, we can break those down a little bit as we go along. Right now, obviously, technology has served us very well, and it has provided us opportunity to stay connected. But I want to be careful with how we use that word connected, right? Because yes, we are connected in a sense of, hey, I know what you've been up to. I've been following along, and I see that you have been doing X, Y, and Z activities in your home. But we are connected by staying informed, or I think it's almost better to say we are staying in contact with people, but that there's a lack of deep, meaningful connection there. And so it's great, like Zoom and FaceTime and these formats have offered us an opportunity to continue to work and interact with coworkers or to work out. I think about F45, the HIIT gym that I'm a partner with here and that I work out with nearly every day. And it's been awesome that we've had the opportunity to continue to do workouts virtually through Zoom or FaceTime on a daily basis. However, I don't want to discount it completely. I feel connected in that it's great to see that the people from the gym they're doing well, they're healthy, they still care about working out. We still have the shared value of coming together in synchrony to do workouts, to work on our physical and mental health. However, I don't get that same level of connection because it's strictly business. And so like Zoom, it starts abruptly, we get right into the workout, and once the workout's done, there's an announcement about the next one, and then, boom, it's cut off, and that's it. So I don't get what's, for me, very valuable, which is that post-workout 15 minutes or so of banter and social interaction, to where I get to know people on a deeper level. I get to know about their family or their careers and their values, and we get to build relationships or friendships. That's not there right now. Okay, so I get to see them, and we do this workout together, and there is value in that, yes, but there's still a lot lacking that we would get on a deeper level in the studio setting. Another one, I think of, a lot of people have been doing social distancing visits with neighbors or family members. And I took a trip down memory lane recently to where I grew up, and I made several stops, and I visited with people, many of whom I had not seen in a year or two or more. I visited with them from a distance, and I'm a hugger and a handshaker. I'm someone who values those physical gestures of contact and of affection and appreciation, and through physical contact, and as human beings, that is natural for us, right? We innately desire and value physical contact from the point of a baby being born, and forming a sense of security through the affect of a mother's touch, right? So we develop through that. Healthy interactions, relationships include healthy, reassuring forms of touch through whatever it's a hand on the shoulder, handshakes, hugs, whatever that looks like. So, I'm going along, and it was very awkward for me, or has been, because I'm not able to do those traditional greetings and shake hands with clients, or as I was going to see old friends, who I would prefer to embrace with a hug. And I even went to see my mom, and, typically a departing routine for my mom's includes a hug, right? And this time, there was this unsureness. I don't know, maybe it's not best that we do that. So then, I leave without a hug, and it feels very cold and impersonal. And so it just felt very incomplete. And that goes to show, like, these interactions are not normal for us, right? And they shouldn't be, right? This is outside of our realm. As human beings, we need human touch and close interaction. We need those symbols of affection. And so that's been a challenge, right? So whereas, yes, I get to see people, or we've gotten to see people and interact and talk, there seems to be then a little incompleteness in those interactions, because they sort of stop short of, total fulfillment of everything that should be involved in it, right? And so that's tricky. And I think that, I hope that during this time, it's given us a new appreciation for the value of face-to-face interaction, and being able to have contact with, be closer than within 6 feet of one another. During this time, I kind of feel like I've gotten a clear understanding of what some of my clients who spend a lot of time gaming experience, or whose social lives are exclusively through live gaming and technology, and who really don't spend time with friends or social companions on a physical level, right? Maybe sometimes, but I have some who are pretty exclusive online. So I feel like I kind of gotten a sense of what that's like. In fact, I've had some clients who said, well, I don't really notice anything different right now than it was before, because I've never really left the house to interact. This is just how I live my life. And, it's concerning to me, and I hope that we have all kind of seen that when we're forced to do that as the only way, it's not as fulfilling as the physical face-to-face interaction. And, and I think about how the value of what some of my clients are missing out on, because they get all of their social interaction through a computer screen or through a headset and gaming, right? And so I think this has opened our eyes to show us that there's so much more, and that there is a significant difference between interacting through social media or gaming or technology versus being physically in space with someone where you can make eye contact. We need that eye contact. We need the be able to hear the inflections in voice and tone and volume of a conversation. We need that reassuring hand on a shoulder, that hug to close out a conversation. So those things bring additional value, and I hope that that's been sort of clarified for us through this process. And then secondly, we've lost the connection to meaningful careers and just the purpose of work, and that could be multiple things. Honestly, right now, someone could have lost a job that they hated, quite frankly, and they could still be struggling because while as they probably don't miss the job itself, they are suddenly feeling a lost sense of purpose as being a provider or being capable or able to go and work and sort of be that breadwinner, bring home the bacon, if you will. So there's that component as well, but then you've also got that person who not only worked for the sake of earning a paycheck and providing the family's needs, but perhaps that job to them was extremely meaningful and provided an incredible amount of purpose and value. So if that's gone, that's kind of a double whammy right there. So I think now too, it's helping us see the importance of not only our careers as a means of financial stability, but also the role that they play in giving the sense of purpose and value, having somewhere to go each day or some type of purpose to fulfill each day. And when that's removed, then we start to understand that, wow, as much as we might dread working sometimes, that really does serve a tremendous purpose in our lives, because oftentimes we don't understand and appreciate the value of something until it's removed, right? And we think it's something we hate or despise, but then when it's gone, all of a sudden we begin to realize the real value there. And then the third lost connection that we're facing is that sense of hope toward a clear and promising future, right? So right now, how do we have hope towards a clear future when everything is so blurry, right? We're getting a little bit of feedback as far as dates and businesses reopening, but there's still so much unknown. And so how can we make plans? How can we rest easy looking towards the future when there's so many unanswered questions? And so that's a challenge right now where we've lost that connection. Whenever we can, even if we're in a poor circumstance in the moment, if we're able to look ahead to more promising days, that really helps us persevere. And right now we're in sort of a dire circumstance with a unknown outcome. And so we're facing a sort of an additionally complicated situation. And any one of those lost connections could be a real challenge, let alone this triad here of all three of them that I think, I would say definitely everyone's experienced that lost connection to close people, meaningful relationships. There's probably some people in our lives that we're missing or we want to get back to spending time with. I can think people that I'd like to have people over for dinner again, right? Love cooking for myself, great, but I like hosting people. Road trips, I've already kind of envisioned how I want some of the first road trips to look once we've cleared this situation and we're back in to whatever normalcy looks like. Which, by the way, what does normal even mean? I think that's a whole other thing. Like, who created the sense of normal, and or the whole standard for that? And then if perhaps you have had no change in your job and your income is stable and you continue to work, so you might not have experienced the lost connection to meaningful work, right? So you might be exempt. Now, I do think, though, for the majority too, there has been that sense of lost, sort of hopeful, promising and clear future, because it's just hard right now to make a lot of plans. Okay, but I think about this now. There's one area that the book talks about that says that if we lose connection to that, it can lead to depression, and that is the lost connection to nature. and our natural surroundings. And I want to believe and be hopeful now that if anything has been gained by this, and we've had loss in these other areas, is that we have gotten a closer and deeper connection with our natural surroundings, right? With wildlife, with the parks, with just the property that we live on, that we have grounded ourselves because we've had a lot more time, and the restrictions that we've been placed upon us have forced us to connect with nature. So I'm hoping that people have shifted that loss in those other areas to a deeper connection with nature to prevent the onset of sadness or depression, right? But, there's so many different areas of loss that we're experiencing right now. And I think that's the thing we have to be careful, is that any one of these can lead down a road to depression. And it's hard to say, do we have exact answers? No. A big part of this is faith and believing that things are going to work out. I'm always going to encourage you and tell you that one of the main ways to combat mental health challenges and anxiety is to look at a situation and say, what do I have control over and what's outside of my control, and separate the two. And you focus your energy and resources on what you do have control over, and then the rest you can pray about or you can delegate or whatever. But our focus needs to be on those things that we have control over. With my business, there's been a lot of things that I've tried to figure out in terms of scheduling and financially and covering deficits and just, the changes are taking place. And there's a point where it stops from, there's a point where my control over it stops, and I just have to accept it. And then, and I've had people say well, are you stressed out about this? Or, why would I be? I mean, I do what I can do, and then, I pray about the rest, and I just cast the remainder of those burdens off of you. If I handle my responsibility, respond the way that I am able to, we're breaking down that word responsibility. So respond in the way that I am able to. Outside of that, what else can I do, right? So we have to really, like I said, employ a lot of faith and trust in that process. So I'm hopeful that everyone is at least addressing their mental health and the anxiety and perhaps the depression onset that you're facing from this, and that you're being proactive. The great thing is that you can still get the mental health services through telehealth. I'm so excited that we have learned that some of my clients we can do this service of meeting in the community or at the park and walking and talking about mental health challenges, being physically active, moving our bodies, and getting exposure to sunlight and nature. It's just brought so much more to the table. It's offering clients so much more when it comes to addressing their mental health. And that's been amazing. And you know what? If it wasn't for COVID-19 and this pandemic shutting traditional way we do things down, then we wouldn't know this. And that's, I think, a great point, is to say one way to drive ourselves into depression is to feel backed into a corner and say, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm so overwhelmed because the way that I've always done things, it's not working right now. And I don't know how to think outside of the box. I refuse to change the way I operate my life. And there's been one way I've always done it, and I'm gonna continue to try to do it this way. And if you continue to hit a wall, you're going to become depressed. You're going to become so frustrated. So right now, if I could give a suggestion for avoiding depression or extreme anxiety during this circumstance, is to be flexible. It's to be adaptable. It's to allow yourself to think outside the box and to be able to call audibles and say, you know what, this is how I've always operated, but it's not working in this circumstance. So I'm going to be willing to explore new ways to approach this, right? I'm going to, ego can really get in the way right now. And another book I'm reading, yes, I read multiple books at once. That's sort of my attention deficit trait. But it's called Ego is the Enemy. And I read a couple books now about how the ego can be so damaging. And I think that's part of it too, is when we get so determined to do things one way, or specifically how we think they should be done. And that leads us down this really frustrating path because we're afraid to, essentially changing the way we do things would be saying, well, I was wrong, or I didn't have it all figured out. And that's hurtful to our pride. Our ego hates that, right? But we don't grow without being open-minded and being willing to roll with the changes, see adversity as opportunity for growth, right? So we've got to really check our egos during this time too, because we can get very stubborn and say, well, and I've mentioned this before, we can get so exhausted with trying to continue to do things the way that we have always done them, to the point of complete just meltdown, rather than saying, you know what, this is not effective. What's a different way that we can approach this? So please, in an effort to take care of your mental health, think outside the box and be willing to kind of roll with these changes and see how you can grow and adapt. But yeah, so we're going to explore this book more in the future. I love this work by Johann Hari. He has lots of interviews on YouTube, in fact, with Joe Rogan, the Rich Roll podcast, Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. I posted some of those on my Foresight Wellness Facebook page, and I'll get some more of those up as well. I encourage you to go listen to those interviews with Johann Hari. We're gonna discuss some of these other books that I'm listening to as well. But I really encourage you to be mindful of your mental and emotional health right now, and consider the lost connections that you're personally facing, and do as much as you can to bridge that gap. I think it's been very enlightening, and I'm glad that I've gotten to learn what I have. Like I said, learning more about kind of what life is for, or like for my clients who spend all of their time gaming, and all of their social interaction is online, and I'm realizing that there's so much that's being missed out on there, that there is something to value about technology interactions, but we need connectivity at a much deeper level for our emotional and mental health, physical health, really all across the board, right? It's absolutely critical. It's a primal need for us as human beings. So we will continue to explore. Again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. And as always, if you're not following along, it's at Foresight Wellness on Facebook. So daily posts there as far as like my workouts, what I'm eating, articles that I'm reading, podcasts, original writings that I do, links to YouTube as well. So on YouTube, I'm at Derek Forsyth, or you can follow me on Instagram at Derek Forsyth as well. And the story, really my Instagram story is probably the most intense way to keep up with what I have going on. You can really see my day-to-day health and lifestyle behaviors, as well as get that information and feedback about ways to optimize your health, especially your mental health. So again, thanks guys for tuning in, and we'll catch up again here soon to explore more ways to optimize our health. Thanks a lot.